Welcome to Fun Ballet Podcast, where we are unpacking opinions and changing destinations. I am your host, Sherley, where each week we will chat about how to rise strong out of all types of obstacles that come with relationships. Through personal life experiences and discussions ranging from infidelity, trust, forgiveness, sex, heartbreak, self-love, and so much more. I am passionate and obsessed to provide guidance to every woman to create a better life. Let's dive in, pull up a seat, make sure you're cozy, and get ready to be challenged and encouraged while you learn. With me, your virtual girlfriend. Welcome back to another episode of Fun Ballet Podcast, and today we have a special guest with us today. We have Chantal, who is a special educator, author, speaker, and transformation neuro coach, who helps women experiencing life transitions create a new vision for themselves, reconnect with their passion and purpose, and turn their transition into their triumphant transformation. Chantal, thank you for being a guest. How are you today?
I'm wonderful. Thank you so much for having me.
Wonderful. Good to have you as a guest. Every guest I'm excited to have on board and to listen to their story. So I'm going to pass you the mic to add on to your bio and snazz it up a little bit more for our listeners.
Yeah. So let's see. We'll just kind of go back a tiny bit and tell you a little bit about my journey. Are you ready for that as part of my
I'm ready.
bio? Where it
Yeah,
came from, what makes me
definitely.
me?
There's no right or wrong here. You start wherever you feel comfortable, my dear.
Perfect. So yes, I had a huge journey, before my 30th birthday in life and experiences. But what really kind of catapulted me into the work that I do now is on my 30th birthday, I left my abusive husband and had to completely rebuild myself and my life. And I entered that marriage with very low self-esteem, years and years and years of stress, anxiety, depression, health issues related to the stress and anxiety. And so it's not like I entered into that marriage as this perfect, happy, healthy person.
Mm-hmm.
But I definitely did not leave any better than I was when I entered. In fact, much, much worse.
Okay.
And so yeah, for the first time in my life, picked up a self help book and just kind of dove into that personal development world and just completely changed my universe and eventually started taking action on the things that I was learning in all the books and all the podcasts. As I was hearing patterns, about the 10th person that told me to start a gratitude journal, and I'd roll my eyes and think to myself, who has time for that? How in the world is that going to help me? Like, who are you crazy people? By like the 10th book, I was finally like, oh, maybe I should listen. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Maybe I
And
should listen to what they're saying.
yes, since they've written books and have lots of letters that after their names, and I'm like, okay, maybe they do know what they're talking about. And so just started taking action on some of the things. And then, as you shared, I am a special educator. And so, as my friends and family just completely watched me transform before their eyes in a matter of a couple of years, and they're just like staring at me like, who are you? You're this happy, vibrant, healthy, confident woman. And like, where did that come from? And how can I get some of that? Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so I took my special ed background and just started making little lessons and worksheets and activities and just started small with somebody. I would just talk generally about like a gratitude journal and be like, well, what's that? How do you do that? So I'd share. And then like a week later, they'd be texting me and they're like, okay, girl, I thought you were crazy, but here's what happened. What else you got for me? And I'm like, oh,
Oh.
okay. I don't know, And it just kind of led from there. And then it led to me writing my book, Create a Life You Love 10 Healthy Habits to Transform Your Life Now. And then as I was doing book signings for that, people started asking to hire me as their coach. And I'm like,
Oh.
I am a teacher, you crazy person. Why in the world would you want to hire me as a coach? I am not a coach.
But you wrote a book.
I did write a book, but it was part memoir, part self help, and all very
Okay.
foundational. These were the limiting beliefs in my head at the time.
Mhm.
Um, it was very foundational, like self-help 101. Like I don't know anything. Nothing in there was groundbreaking, earth-shattering. It was
Mhm.
just, here are 10 things that I heard repeated from lots of people that I put into action. And
Mhm.
so half the chapter is my struggle with it. Like
Mhm.
I mentioned, the gratitude of just being like, really, really, who has time for that? How is that going to help
Mhm.
me? And then what happened when I implemented it. And then it turns into a your turn section where it's
Mhm.
like 5 simple steps that anybody can pick up and do right now. Everything's very actionable and implementable.
Gotcha. Very good.
Yeah.
And I think you did. Hold on, I'm looking it up. Bear with me. Oh, I don't have the name here. Oh, a free preview of Create a Life You Love. There you go. I have it right here. So I'm going to unravel a bit of your story here. So how old are you now?
I am 37.
37. So it's been 7 years since you left that destructive situation that you were in. And was the at 30 was the divorce final, or is that when the process started?
Um, Luckily for me, my dad is more alpha male than my ex-husband.
Okay.
And um, once I told my parents what was going on, and another blessing is that my ex and I did not have children together.
Okay.
And so my dad stepped in and said, "This is it." Like I never spoke to or interacted or saw my ex after I left. My dad and the attorneys took over everything.
Oh, look at
Yes,
that. Dad stepped in. And I
yes.
guess at that moment, because sometimes I feel like parents don't know when to back away, when not. As a mother myself, I can understand
Hmm.
you always want to protect your children. I'm actually preparing myself now. My kids are 13 and 14
Mm,
because within the next 5 or 6 years, there is about to be a drastic change in my life. And these little people are going to be making decisions on their own. As crazy as it may sound, I am actually preparing myself now. So I know one parent gave me the best advice ever. Majority of the times, your kids only want you to listen,
mm,
and that's it. You can give them advice if they ask for it,
mm,
but you need to know when to back up and when to step up. So I guess in this situation, your father knew, okay, it is time for me to step up in my role as a parent and do what I need to do for my daughter because she needs me now.
yes. So that same day when I
Mm-hmm.
left,
Mm-hmm.
because he lived in a different state, he was stationed a few hours away from where my home base had been. So I was kind of
Mm-hmm.
coming back home.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and they live another 2 hours north. So they lived about 4 hours from where I was, but we both drove 2 hours and met at my sister's house. And to which I just kind of explained what was going on. And I was so delusional, for lack of better word, in that moment, and regurgitating all the things that had been pounded in my head since a kid growing up in church and all the Sunday school answers of, well, we said vows before God and I don't believe in divorce and this is going to be a really good wake up call. And, I asked him if we could go to therapy and counseling and he wouldn't. But now that I've left and it's summer, I can stay at my sister's for a couple months. We can get individual help and then I'll move back in the fall. And years from now, at like our 50th wedding anniversary, we're going to be like, man, our first year of marriage was so hard, but look how far we've come.
Mm-hmm.
And those were the thoughts, the literal thoughts in my head and the words coming out of my mouth.
Mm-hmm.
And my dad stepped aside with my brother-in-law who's a police officer, and they just kind of talked it out. And the message that my dad got was very clear, that just based off, and they knew I had not been there very long. I just started talking about these things that day, so they were getting a tip of the iceberg.
Mm-hmm.
um and he said, the tiny bit that I've gathered in the few minutes she's been here, this is escalating quickly. It has gotten to the point of like strangulation. Um, this is a death sentence. Like this, if she goes back, she's not. coming back. Like this will be sending her back to her death, basically. And so then my dad was able to come in, and he's very, very strong in his Christian faith. And I don't want to disappoint my dad, right? And so he asks, "Do you think this is salvageable?" And I said, "Well, I mean, it has to be because divorce is a sin and da 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 da." And he's like, "I don't think it's salvageable. And I think if you go back, the next time I see you, we'll be in a body bag."
Your father
And
told you this.
mhm.
Okay.
And that was the first time that I allowed myself, like, it's like he gave me permission. Like, you're not
Mm.
disappointing me. I'm not disowning you. Like, nobody in the church is going to disown you. Like, this
Hmm.
is not good, and we have got to get you out of this. Um, and so my response was, "So what do I do?" And he said, "Lawyer up." And I just start bawling. I'm like, "It's my 30th birthday. I don't know how to lawyer up. I don't have a lawyer. What are you talking about?" Like, I have no idea.
Oh.
I'm not ready to be an adult. Um, and so it really helped too, because I was a member of National Education Association, like the teachers union. And with my membership, I had access to free legal services.
Hmm.
And so all the legal stuff, as long as it was, oh man, no, I can't think of the right word. Um, as long as he didn't like argue against it, as long as he
Okay.
like we didn't make it messy, I could get it completely paid for.
Oh,
But because I was moving back to the state I'd come from, my dues ran out at a certain time. So the
okay.
attorneys knew if they were going to get paid, they needed to
To act
kind of hustle.
quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So it all got resolved very quickly, like in 3 months.
that's good. So
Yeah.
when we talk about abuse, we're talking
Mhm.
about emotional,
Mhm.
physical,
Mhm.
verbal,
Very, yep. Mhm. And it started more with the verbal emotional, and the
verbal.
physical kicked
Yeah,
in later.
that's typically how it starts. It
Mhm.
starts from emotional, transitions to verbal, and then the
Mhm.
physical kicks in because each phase, I feel they start to get comfortable being
Mhm.
disrespectful. The emotional abuse starts, they've said, okay, I got away with this. Then the verbal abuse, then they got away with that. Then let me try a little physical. And then they realize, oh, okay, I'm getting away with a lot. And it just escalates and escalates and escalates unless they realize, because even you as the victim, there's nothing you're going to do unless they realize. I feel like someone who is an abuser is not going to stop abusing until they realize what they're doing is wrong. Just like a drug user or alcoholic or someone who's into pornographic
Mhm.
items, it's all in that same thing. Unless you realize that something is wrong with me, I need to get help and I need to stop doing what I'm doing, there's nothing that you would have been able to do.
Right.
Yeah. So now, who was your brother-in-law was your sister's husband,
Mhm.
or I should say I'm talking was,
Yes.
is your sister's
Still
husband
is, yes.
who is a police officer.
Mhm.
So you immediately left the house. Why that day? Tell me what happened that day that you quickly had to leave and you went to your sister's house and your father met you there.
Mhm.
Got it.
So, it was my 30th birthday, and I had two of my best friends come down from Wichita, Kansas, to where I was living in Oklahoma, to celebrate my 30th birthday with me. And things had been progressively escalating, and he had recently completely like ripped everything away from me. Like I had said before we even met, that I know you've been married before. I know you have a young child. I want children of my own. So if you don't want more children, don't even bother driving up here, because that is a deal breaker for me. And he gave me the whole, no, he's still young and I love being a dad and I want him to have a brother and da 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 da. And yes, I'd love if it worked out to we got to that place, then yes, I would 100% want to have more children. And I said,
Okay.
okay. And so now we're married. Um, we just bought a new house, new to us house, that was bigger. We'd identified what room was going to be the nursery, and we were going to start actively trying for a child of our own after my 30th birthday.
After your 30th birthday.
Yes.
So just to make sure I understand and the listeners understand, you walked away on your 30th birthday. How long were you married?
From hi, nice to meet you on our first date, and by that we met on Match.com, and then from the judge saying sign here was about 2 years, and so only about 7 months married under the same house, and then it took about 3 months to finalize after I had left. So it was
Okay.
pretty quick.
Okay, gotcha. So everything happened, everything from the day you met to the divorce is 2 years, but the
Mhm.
actual living in the same house was 7 months because at the seventh month, that's when you drove to your sister's.
And I had moved in a little bit before we got married,
Okay,
so we'd lived together for about a year.
got it.
And
Okay.
the big abuse, nothing really started because we went through so many, like, deployments and stuff. Most of our dating was via Skype, was how I
Oh,
got to know him.
I see. Because you met on Match.com. I'm
Mhm,
assuming he was deployed. So,
mhm,
like you guys were having a long distance relationship until he came back to the States. Then it started to be interaction, physical
mhm,
interaction. Got it.
mhm,
So now you get married. You're supposed to try for a baby. What happens
mhm.
after there? Continue.
So, as we're leading up to my birthday, he starts saying things like, "Well, now that my son is 5 and he's entering kindergarten, yeah, I just don't know. I don't want to do diapers again. And I know you said that was a deal breaker. So I know that means you need to leave me, and I get it." And I'm like, "What?" Because I told you the other deal breaker was that I don't believe in divorce and you already had one under your belt. So if you ever thought there would be an escape path, don't bother asking me. Like, because
Mm,
once you ask, if I say yes and we go down that path, like, you're stuck with me, type of thing. So that caused several weeks of a lot of inner turmoil for me. And my final response was, um, I took vows in front of God. And so now I need to go to therapy and figure out how to not hate you for the rest of my life and how to cope with this because we're already married. So pretty much we're stuck together, was basically
mm.
how I was processing it. Well, that did not make him happy, and because he needed me out of the picture because he'd already knocked up somebody else, I found out later. And yeah,
This story just unraveled. Okay. She just
Yes.
opened the Pandora's
Oh,
box.
yes, there we go. Um, and so that is another reason that the physical way escalated, was
Okay.
because he needed me out of the picture.
He needed you gone, so he felt if he went this route, maybe it would help you leave faster.
Well, luckily that is what happened.
Yeah.
But our beautiful new home had this amazing in-ground pool, and it was the beginning of summer break, and he started, to my mom, to my best friend, to all kinds of people, he was reaching out to them, texting and saying, "I got home from work and Chantel's like passed out by the pool again, drunk again. She just drinks all day by the pool. And one day I just know I'm going to come home and find her dead in the pool." Yeah.
He started texting this to your mom and your best friend?
Mhm.
Just and
Yeah.
okay. So it seems like you're a Christian woman,
Mhm.
Chantel. I'm assuming this is something that probably threw your mother and your best friend off because they know this is not you.
So, full disclosure, I do like me a cocktail, but I am not a,
He described you
like,
as an
sit by the pool.
alcoholic.
Right. Right. And that I'm in like all day drinking by myself. I'm like, I'm social. I'm a social, like, I go out with friends and we dance and we karaoke and we have some drinks and then
Mhm.
I go home. Um So, but they had not, he'd isolated me so much that they'd not really seen me or interacted with me for a while. And
I
so they're
see.
like, well, so she, because he's painting this picture of, she's not connecting with anyone down here. She used to be really social. She's really depressed. I'm really worried about her. Well, I wasn't social because he was purposely isolating me so
Mhm.
that, I mean, that's just part of the cycle.
Yeah, it is.
um, and so, yeah. But so later, once all the pieces came together, my best friend, who's a licensed clinical social worker, was like, oh my gosh, he was grooming us. He was setting the stage so that when he drowned you in that pool, we wouldn't ask a bunch of questions. We'd be like, oh man, we saw it coming.
Setting the scene. It's like an
Hmm.
investigation discovery story.
Yeah.
Oh my.
So that was a fun realization.
Oh my goodness. Now, let me ask you, okay, I'm a Christian woman. I was raised in a Christian house. And when I say Christian, I'm not like I believe in God, but I curse, I drink. I'm not an alcoholic, but I love a Bailey's. But I have no problem. And I'm not legally married. We've been together for 23 years. We're not legally married, but I was always that eyeball child. My paternal grandfather was a pastor, but I was always that eyeball child. Like when I was younger, I knew I wanted children. And regardless if I was married or not, Shirley was going to have kids. Now, if I was in your shoes and that was a deal breaker to me, and now you done changed your mind, I would have been like, fuck it, I'm leaving you.
Right.
But in your sense, you were like, now I have to stay. So let me ask you, because we're seeing this from two different perspectives. And I like this when the host and the guest sees things from two different perspectives. If I was your friend, Chantel, I would have been like, girl, walk the hell away. Don't tell me about, see, I'm that friend where like, if you want Christian advice, you don't come to me because I'm be like, Chantel, walk the hell away. I'm not going to give you no Christian advice right now. He crazy and he's already
Mhm,
broken the deal with you. He doesn't want children. Just divorce the guy. But you didn't
mhm,
want to. What was going through your mind? Did you not want to disappoint your father? Because you started off with once your father gave you that permission,
mhm.
letting you know it was okay, it was like relief.
Yeah. I think subconsciously that really was the kicker for me
Mm,
was um yeah, just not wanting to disappoint him. And he in no way is I don't know. He adopted me when I was 3. My mom is my birth mom. He's raised me as his own. And he helped my mom in similar things when we entered the picture.
wow. Mhm.
Um, and so yeah, I just really did not want to disappoint him, I think. And then that did cause a lot of later when processing, and because there's a lot of therapy afterwards.
Mhm.
And I was so angry at myself and at
Mhm.
the church, at,
Mhm.
just everything. I'm like, I probably would not have even gotten in this situation if I wasn't raised in this BS of you've got to
Oh,
grow up and get married and have a baby and live happily ever after and go to church every Sunday and pretend like you're this big happy family. And even when life isn't great behind the scenes, you still show up on base and to church as if everything is fine.
exactly.
Um, and so I still at 37, I am officially the black sheep in my family. So I do not go to church on Sundays. I still feel like I'm like, yes, I am a Christian. I believe in God,
Mhm.
but I just I don't know. There's still a lot of hurt there, and
I
they don't get
understand.
that. They're always sending emails of, "We really wish you would plug into a good church somewhere," and I'm kind of like, "Nah, I'm good."
Yeah. I haven't been to church since I was a teenager. I think it was 18 or 19. I've done a few visits, maybe one or two when I say a few, but it's I praise him in different ways.
Mhm,
I'll watch something on TV, read my Bible,
mhm,
and to me that's a connection. Just if I'm not in the physical building, I've allowed myself to say that is okay, Shirley. That is all right. Don't allow the world to make you feel just because you are not waking up on Sunday, putting your best church clothes on, going into a physical building, it makes you less closer to God.
right.
That's how I've processed it in my mind. I wouldn't call you a black sheep. It's just, you know, things are different now, and
Yeah.
it's a rude awakening for your family, and they just need to adjust to it because it's your life, your self-worth, your self-care, and you know what's best for Chantel.
Yes.
Yeah. So now I want to go into Pandora's box. How did you find out about the other woman, and how far along was she? And that had to be added stress on top of the fact this man just now relieved told you 7 months into the marriage that, hey, listen, I changed my mind about having children. Okay, that's huge. As a mother, I get it. That is huge. A deal breaker, you know? And at that time, how you felt strongly about divorce. How did you find out about this other woman?
Yeah. So it took the attorneys 5 weeks to get to a place where we had all of us had signed papers of this is what I brought into the house about a year earlier, and this is what I will take out. Here's how the different wedding gifts will be divided up. And to like where we each had a list of
Mm-hmm.
I am coming down there with my mom and dad and a U-Haul and taking these things listed out, and I'm not touching anything else. And it was his house. He's welcome to be there. But my dad made it clear that if he chooses to be there, there will also be local police officers called to just be nearby or on site. Um, and so he opted not to be there. So we just get there and we just want to, okay, find this, get in on the U-Haul, let's get out of here. Cause we didn't know, when we're there for an hour, then is he going to show up? Like, we just don't know. He's a wild card. So we get there and I'm getting some things, and there's just things in the house that I had been living in 5 weeks prior and left unannounced. That I'm like, there's another woman living in this house. Okay.
Oh.
And then my mom opens what she didn't know was going to be the nursery just to see if there was any list items in there. And she's like, "What?" And calls me in, and there's a crib, everything. There's a little tiny brand new infant living in my nursery, and it's not mine. So I'm like, okay, so this baby has been born within this last 5 weeks. It takes 9 months to have a baby. We've been married for 7. Why the hell did you even marry me and put me through all this crap if you were sleeping with someone else at the same time of asking me to marry you and all this stuff? And yeah.
Let me do the math here. You were out for
Mhm.
5 weeks, married for 7. So we're going to say 8.5 weeks total. That means, Chantel,
Mhm.
literally, you got married and he must have found out she was pregnant. So the whole time you were dating long distance, he was having another relationship on the side.
Mhm. I know how to pick them, Shirley.
Oh my gosh. But you learn from this, you
Yes.
take this as this is a learning curve. Every relationship is a learning experience. So, do you know who she is?
No, and in the very beginning, the shock and the hurt, I wanted to be mad at her,
Mhm.
but in the final months and a little bit afterwards, I got to know his first ex-wife a little bit,
Mhm.
and everything he painted her, he just really vilified her before I
Mhm.
even had a chance to meet her,
Mhm.
and kept us apart from each other and like any chance he could get, and just played the victim like he's this great loving caring husband and dad, and he had to fight for full custody for their son because she's such a piece of work and this that and the other. No, all lies. And so I'm like, okay, I already saw the pattern that you did with her and me. So if woman number I'm 3 that I know of, there's probably more in there.
Mhm.
But woman number 3 that I'm aware of even knows about my existence. Who knows what bizarro lies he has concocted to make him look like this amazing person, and he loves her and I'm just I can't even imagine.
I can
Um
tell a lazy drunk.
Yep.
Especially if he was texting your family saying she's
hmm
drunk by the pole. I can only
hmm
imagine what he was telling this woman. And it's you made a good comment about at first you wanted to be mad at her. You know, in my relationship as well, we have fidelity on both sides, both me and hubby. And at first I did want it to be mad at the other woman. Now, I want to break it down for our listeners because this is how I've processed this situation in my head. It's never the other woman's fault. And I want to make that clear. It's really, truly never the other woman's fault. But I will say one thing that my counselor have told me, all three parties do play a role. The only time I feel as though the woman should not be held accountable at all is only if she was absolutely bamboozled into the situation and lied to. And only the person and the woman are really going to know what the true situation is. In that case, if you're lied and fooled the whole time, then you really truly don't know. And you were not giving a choice. You didn't even give me the opportunity to say, okay, I want to be the side chick, or you know what? I don't want to be part of this and I want to walk away from it. And this is the problem as adults is like we try to play this Russian roulette, this game with people, and you shouldn't mess with people's feelings. Human emotions can get really bad. And the point I was trying to make is if she is unaware, then I don't hold her at fault. If she is aware, fully aware of the situation that is going on, that's the only time I will say that you shouldn't be mad at her, but she does also have to take accountability for the situation that she entered into. Because, you know, that's why I wanted to address being upset at her. No, you don't need to be upset at her or mad at her or take your anger out on her because your husband was the one that made the choice to step out. So he's the one that you need to address and deal with. But it does not make the other woman unaccountable, if that makes sense, because if she did fully knew about you and about the situation, this human being made a conscious choice to be with this individual. So she does need to take accountability of the situation because all three parties play a role. You play a role, he plays a role, and she plays a role. And I find it hard to believe that she was not aware of you. The big question is, what foolishness was he feeding her?
I yeah, I have no doubt in my mind. There's incredible amount of lies. Um, just because I later in hindsight was realizing how much of what he told me was a lie.
Mm-hmm.
I found out later after we were already married that when he met me and claimed he was divorced, they were still legally married.
Oh, so the
Oh
divorce didn't
yeah.
happen till after.
Mhm,
Literally, it must have been a few weeks before the marriage then.
mhm. So before our first date, on our first date, he was still legally married, but I did not know
Oh
that
my
at the time.
goodness. So he's
So
just fooling everybody here.
yeah, yeah. Um, and then the other thing that makes me not mad at her is, oh gosh, when was this? It was a summer or two ago. Um, I get this phone call, and the caller ID on my cell phone says that Air Force base that we were at. And I'm like, "Oh, I'm not answering this." I was
You thought
like,
it was him.
"Yeah." And I'm like, "I don't know what he would want, but I'm not answering it." And so I let it go to voicemail, and someone left a voicemail. And so then I get up the courage to listen to it. And it was an investigator from on base that said, "We found in his files that you had been married to him at some point. Would you be willing to answer some questions about what your marriage was like because he's been accused of something?" And I'm like, "Hell yeah, let's go. What, do you want me to drive down there right now?" It was right in the middle of COVID. So it was like right that summer of 2020. So I
Mm-hmm.
remember that because then I was like, "I'll get in the car right now. It's 2 hours away. Where can I meet you?" Like, "Let's go." I wanted to go down. Um, and he said, "Well, with COVID and everything, we can do it via Skype."
Okay.
And just laid out what the regulations were, and I had to show an ID and be on camera and things like that to verify who I was. And he did the same so that I knew he wasn't just some random creeper.
Well, that's
And
good.
yeah. And he was very respectful and couldn't tell me a lot about what was going on. But then it just made me be like, okay. So when I left, I don't even feel like I was human. Like I had nothing
Mm-hmm.
left to give, nothing. Like I just wanted out. I didn't want a fight. I didn't want anything. And he happily let me go because that was his, plan all along.
Uh-huh.
He got what he wanted. And so then my brain started going to, oh my gosh. So I left and I didn't say anything and I didn't take him down. And now he's doing it to someone else. And so then I did do a little bit of Facebook stalking. And they do have a child together that's right around, so it was around 5 years old then, because it was about 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And she also had an older child that she brought into the relationship.
Okay.
And so I did reach out to wife number one and just said, "Hey, I got contacted by somebody. I'm going to make a statement. I just want to check, are you and son's name okay?"
Mm-hmm.
And she said, "Thank you for reaching out. Please, yes, tell them anything that you think might help.
Mm-hmm.
At some point, karma's going to catch up to him." Because
Yeah.
she did email me right after I left, and just said, "I don't know what happened, but the fact that you just were like here one day and gone the next makes me wonder if your marriage didn't resemble mine in some ways."
Mm-hmm.
And he truly made me feel like it was all me and my fault, that he would never do that to anyone else. And that's why I never told you, and I'm sorry. And she's like, "I didn't have the strength to do anything about it then, and I regret it. And so if you want to do anything," she's like, "I will do whatever I can do to help you, support you, testify against him. Like, let's take this
This
mother
is
effer
great.
down."
This is women coming together
Hmm.
and helping each other out in certain
Yeah.
situations where you need the support.
Hmm.
You want to made not be made felt like you're a Looney Tune.
Yeah. So it was helpful and hurtful to get that from her. And she intended it helpful. Like her intent was not hurtful at all, but
Mm-hmm.
it just made me feel like, oh my gosh, I believed all these lies about her. And even question, like, he just made up all this stuff. And I was like, "Yep, that sounds legit." Like, but who does that?
I know.
Like,
A narcissist. A narcissist.
that's
Yeah.
funny you use that word. Yes, because he self-diagnosed himself as that. Fun.
Mm. So he knows he's a piece of crap.
Mhm. Well, so how it came about was I was saying, "This isn't healthy. This isn't good. We need to get help. We need to go to counseling." And he would say, "I'm not going to counseling. I only do this because you do this, this, and this. You need to go to counseling and you need to fix how you act so that I don't do this to you." Um, and so I was like, "All right, well, I'm going to counseling because I'm so miserable and unhappy." Um, and would keep trying to get him to go. And then he's
Mm-hmm.
like, "Oh, I'm not going to counseling. I'm smarter than any counselor in the whole world. I'm going to go get my psychology degree and become a counselor." And I'm like, "Okay, because that's a normal line of thought there. Okay." And so while he's studying for whatever test he needed to get into this master's program, he's looking up personality disorders. And he calls me over to the laptop and he's like, "Hey, will you read this?" Um, and I'd heard like the term like don't be a narcissist, but
Mm-hmm.
just thought it was like don't be self-centered. The world doesn't revolve around you. I had no idea it was a personality disorder.
Yep.
And when I read it, it just chills because it was like textbook. I mean, there should have been his picture right there on the screen, staring back at
She
me.
said it should have been his picture. Now, was this conversation within that 7 months or before the marriage?
This
within that
was
7
within the
months.
7 months. Yeah.
Chantel, did you see any red flags before all this other than you wanting to have a baby that you now look back and say, you know what? I should have walked away from this, or I should have walked away from this.
hmm Several. And my I had such low self-esteem, and people, not everybody, but several of the people I dated prior to him were like outwardly, like right from the beginning, even more cruel. And
Mm,
so he really came off in the beginning as this knight in shining armor, just this Mr. Perfect, charismatic, caring, attentive individual. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe somebody like him would even give me the time of day. And so I would ignore some things because that's just where I was on my journey at that moment.
I see.
um, but then I had three cats at the time. One was a male cat, and Fred did not like this guy. And when he would come, he would climb in his suitcase and pee all over everything. And Fred did not have accidents in the house. So it was very intentional. And
Oh,
so he said, when we got engaged and we're making plans to move there, he's like, I'm not comfortable with you bringing Fred because he has accidents in the house and I can't have that around my kid. Like, he's got all these allergies and everything. He always made everything seem so normal and caring, and like if I questioned it, it made me a bad person. Like, really, you're going to choose a cat over your new stepson? Like, that's where your
hmm.
priorities are? But I should have chosen the cat. Um
Now you look back, you're like, I let Fred
mhm.
go because of
I
you.
know. Freddie Fred. And Ginger was so sad.
Mm. Do you still have the other two cats?
Ginger, I just had to put down. She was 19 years
Oh,
old just a couple months ago. It was very hard.
oh.
And Kiwi came with the rental I was living in, so she stayed with the house. I adopted her when I moved in, and the new people adopted her when I moved
Kiwi's the neighborhood cat, huh? Kiwi. What's a name? What a name. Kiwi.
out.
Who did you give Fred to?
I found somebody who had some acreage and I mean, she looked like freaking Dr. Doolittle. She just took in all the animals and just loved them, and found her on like Craigslist. And
Oh, okay.
so my
So
sister
Fred
went
went to
out there
her.
with me to, and I remember like I was heartbroken and I was bawling, and my sister was like, "Are you sure you want to do this?" And when I gave up my dream job and accepted another job, and I'm supposed to be so happy, and I found out one of my friends got my dream job, like I was devastated, like to the point where like
Oh.
I'm like screaming in a pillow, and like it was just so out of alignment. And I just kept pushing through.
Mm-hmm.
Um Things felt wrong, things felt off, things yeah, but I don't know why, but I just latched on to this idea that it was this whirlwind romance, too good to be true, and how
Mm-hmm.
lucky I am. And yes, it's hard, and yes, it's fast, and I have to give up some things, but look how much I'm going to gain. And I just need to get out there and let it happen and not stand in the way of my own happiness and just stupid stuff like that.
He was saying all the right things to you at that point in your life. You were at a really low point, and
Hmm.
all he was hitting the key notes and saying
Yeah.
all the things to uplift you, to make you feel good and be like, okay, this could be my person.
Hmm.
But all in all, he was just, you were just another fish in the sea.
Hmm.
Just another fish in the sea. Now, you guys were married for 7 months. Were you on birth control pills at the time that you didn't get pregnant?
I have an IUD. Hmm.
Oh, so if you
Yeah.
knew you wanted to have a baby, I would automatically assume like the day after the wedding or within 30 days of you being married, you would have went to the GYN and got that removed. Why didn't you?
Right. Oh, we talked about it. And so we got married November 2nd, and then our honeymoon was an all-inclusive, adults only beach resort in Jamaica,
Hmm.
um, in late December. Like we were there over New Year's. And so then his thinking was, okay, so we paid all this money so we can eat and drink. And so, but if we take it out, and then I'm going to be worried the whole time, like, are you already pregnant? And so then maybe we should just cancel the honeymoon. And so we're like, okay, well, let's wait till after the honeymoon. And then it was, oh, we've really let ourselves go since the wedding. Let's get healthy. Let's lose weight. Let's do this, this, and this. And then, oh, it's almost your 30th birthday. Let's have a big blowout, have all your friends over. He only invited his friends, by the way. Um, and they left. Everybody brought their kids to the pool and they left, and
Oh
I'm
my.
babysitting everybody's kids.
Oh my
I'm like,
goodness. For your
I
birthday.
was, I was pissed. So that also was right in there with the okay, you just told me I can't have my own kids.
Hmm.
Um, and then I say, can we have a kids free weekend for my birthday and just have my friends? You invite my parents, my niece, you switch weekends so that we have your kid. You tell all your friends with their kids to come over. It is a kids' party. This is not my 30th birthday party.
He just did
Um,
everything to annoy you, especially I feel like when he came to children, he just was poking a needle at you.
you know, so
So
yeah.
this is why it never happened because he just kept pushing it off. And the good Chantel that you are, the good wife, you're just like, okay, all right, husband, I'll
Mhm.
listen to what you have to say. You know what I've learned in counseling that we have to learn to listen to ourselves. And listeners, if you're hearing this, this is so important. We have to learn to listen to these cues that we are truly uncomfortable about. You know, I was talking earlier about you have a quiz. There's 50 questions on that quiz. You're able to answer and check off 48 of those questions, but there's two boxes that are not checked off because they are unfulfilled. And
Mm.
those two boxes of whatever they may be, it may be uh, communication issues, financial issues, sexual issues, conceiving issues. It could be random things, what those two boxes are, but they're not being fulfilled. And that's a deal breaker because if you
Mhm.
can't check all 50 of those questions off, then that's a problem. But this is, and I feel like as women, we do it often too. We're always trying to fix. Well, let me listen to him. And then, I want to be a good wife. I don't want to be a complainer. I don't want to be labeled as the wife that's always bitching and complaining. So let me just, we'll wait till after the honeymoon. Now, okay, he's right. Maybe I am a little 10 pounds overweight. Let me just get a little healthier because I'm only going to get bigger when I get pregnant. So, he's not wrong. Instead of holding our ground, and you, even before you got married, what did you say to this man? This is a deal breaker for me. I don't want to have, I want children. So if that's something you don't want, don't waste your time to come back down here. He bamboozled you into a wedding. For what though? This is the underlying reason. Why did you even choose to get married to me? You knocked someone else up. At some point, even you could have told me within what, 90 days? So we could have got it null and void.
Mhm.
But he didn't decide to do that at all. Were you ever able to have a conversation with him, or once you left, that's it?
Yeah. That morning, so my friends had come down and they were going to go back to Wichita. And him and I had said, listen, I just feel really disconnected from you. I really need to connect with you. He was supposed to go be a best man in some wedding in like South Dakota. And so I said, let's take this road trip to just really like get back on the same page. And so that morning, they're packing up to leave, and I had told them a little bit of things the night before of what some types of things that had been going on. And so he wakes up and he's like, you know what? You don't deserve to go on this trip. And so why don't you go? I'm going to be gone for like a week or whatever. and you just basically like sit here and think about what you've done. I'm like, think of what? Like that type of thing. And he's like, well, I'm going to go to work and I'm going to drop off my son at daycare and like work for a little bit. And then I'm hitting the road and I'm going to the wedding. So I'll see you when I get back. And I was like, okay. So he left and then they're like, so you told us this, this, and this, and we can't leave you here. This is not safe and we can't tell you what to do from here, but you are coming with us and you are telling your family. And then what you decide to do after that is up to you.
Who
But
said
like
that?
my two friends
Ah,
from
okay.
Wichita, yeah.
Okay.
And my response was, yep, okay. I've got to, get my passport and get the marriage license and get up in the attic and get the cat carrier and they're like, "Oh, we thought this was going to be a lot harder like to talk you into. Like you're ready to go. Like you're already okay, let's go." Like
It's interesting
um
you say that, Chantel. It seems like at that stage in your life, you always needed a little push.
I did.
You
Yep.
always needed a little push. Like you knew what you wanted. You knew you didn't want to be in that situation anymore, but you were so steadfast on this belief that I cannot get a divorce. You just needed that push from somebody. You needed
Mhm.
outside approval because you weren't confident about your own decision.
Yep, unfortunately. Yep.
Because it took your two friends to say, okay, you need to hit the road.
Mhm. And I was so worried about what other people would think. And I did believe that he had fooled everyone like he fooled me. Because he did come across outside of, behind, not behind closed doors, but, out in public as this very kind, caring, loving, charismatic, everyone loved him type of thing. And so I thought he had everyone else fooled. And the way he flipped everything back on me when something would happen, and I'd be like, this is not okay. I'd be like, you're right, because you did this, this, and this. Then you made me do this. And how bad do you think that makes me feel? And like just made it all twisted it around. So in my head, I felt like on some level it was my fault.
Mm-hmm.
And that if I were to tell anybody, then they, number one, wouldn't believe me.
Mm-hmm.
And number two, would do the exact same thing he did and say, okay, but what did you do to cause that?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then, if on the off chance somebody did believe me, um, they would just look at me like, well, you're an idiot. Like, you left a dream job, you had a good house, you had a good support system, you packed up everything to move to another state for some dude you met online. Yeah, you get what you deserve, you dummy. Like,
Mm,
this was how low I was feeling about myself
I see. I
and
see.
the types of things that were keeping me from telling anybody.
Gotcha. So now let's fast forward and you leave. The divorce is final and you start going down the road of recovery. You start reading self-help books. What motivated you to write Create a Life You Love? How many years now has gone past where you put pen to paper and say, I'm going to write a book?
Um, yes. First off, for anybody listening to this, who's like, wow, she was there and then boom, she wrote a
Mm-hmm.
book. No. Like
She
there's a
said,
lot
no.
there's a lot of messy dumpster fireness in the between there. So like if you are in the mess, if you are living in that dumpster fire, allow yourself grace because been there. Um and then when I was ready, it took about 6 months to just really start evaluating. Um, so my birthday's in June, so now it's January 1st.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, wow, I got a second chance at life.
Mm-hmm.
Had I stayed or had I gone back, I probably would not even be alive today.
Mm-hmm.
What am I doing with this second chance? Like, I don't want to be home. I'm like, go, 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 do, 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 like, stay busy. Like, I hate my house. I hate quiet. I hate thinking. I hate processing. I hate, like, so I just like filling it with anything I can. Um, and so I'm like, this is not sustainable. This is not how I want to live my life. This is nothing. So, what do I want to do? And I just started writing down like things I'd always wanted to do. And so for my 30th birthday, I really had wanted to go skydiving. And he had told me how selfish that was. And if I was going to spend that kind of money, it should include something that his son could enjoy. And if something were to happen and I was injured and I was to just leave him and the son, like, just how selfish and irresponsible could I possibly be? And you've entered into this family and you're a wife and a mom now, and you don't just get to go do things like that. And I'm like, meanwhile, you're in the freaking Air Force and like go to the UAE and go to, I'm like, whatever, dude.
Exactly.
But I didn't have that come back at the moment. But so I put down on my list 6 months outside of the marriage that I still really freaking want to go skydiving. And I want to learn how to salsa dance. And
Oh.
there was other things too. Swim
Mm-hmm.
with dolphins, learn how to surf. Like, it grew to a big list. But it's January. I live in Kansas. I can't go skydiving the next day. But I Googled and there was a salsa class the next night.
Okay.
And so it was way out of my comfort zone. I was terrified. I talked myself in and out of it a gazillion times. But I went and I didn't die.
And you were
And
dancing, salsa dancing.
yes, and it was so fun and so welcoming, and the people were just amazing. And so I went back again the next week, and I went back again the next week. And fast forward a couple months, I am dancing like 6 nights a week. I have a completely new group of friends because most of my friends all got married around the time I got married,
Mm-hmm.
and were having kids at the time I'm getting divorced.
Mm,
So they're still my friends, they still love me, but we're not at the same path of life.
no, it's different. I know
And
what you mean.
yes. And so these dancers, a lot of them are older empty nesters, but they're not sitting at basketball games in the middle of the weekend. Like, they're like, let's go dance here, let's go dance here. And I'm like, yes, let's go
Let's
dance.
go.
So I lost a ton of weight. Um, was just happy, healthy, gained this confidence
Mm-hmm.
that I never imagined I could have.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Joined a bachata dance team. Had never even heard of bachata. It's a different type of Latin dance.
Oh, okay.
And we did some salsa too, but we mostly did bachata. And we're traveling. We're going to Dallas, Kansas City, Oklahoma City. We're going all over for these festivals and to perform. I'm performing, dancing in public. Like,
You're performing?
I'm
So you're
performing.
part of like a dance group?
I was, yes.
Oh,
This was all
okay.
pre-COVID.
I see.
Um, and so my family and friends are all like staring at me like, who are you? This is awesome. And they're coming to my performances and
Oh, this is
they're just
good.
like
Okay.
in awe of like this person that I'm becoming. And um so yeah, then I was at the pool and my friend Stacy was just like, you've done this and you've done that and it's just amazing and I'm in awe of you. And she's a bit older than me, and so her kids were like, she's doing that empty nester thing and she's evaluating, what do I want for my life? And so she's asking me, um, well, what did you do to
Mhm.
get all this confidence and energy and excitement in your life? Like, I literally wake up in the morning and I'm just so excited because then I was so about the dance. I'd be like, it's Tuesday, I get to salsa today. And then, oh, it's a Wednesday, I get to go bachata tonight after work. And like, I turn on whatever type of music that I knew I was going to go dance to that night at the dance studio. And I'd be dancing around my little apartment, like, as I got ready for work. Like, I just was so full of and vibrant. And it was a big difference from what everybody was used to. And so they literally wanted to know, what did you do? And how do I get some of that? And so at first I just, told Stacy at the pool, but then as she started doing things, then I was like, oh my gosh, what if this terrible thing that happened to me could actually be used for good?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And that, yeah, it was a huge, like, why didn't I think about this before? Like, it just was like, boom, like, wow, I could do something with this. And then the other thing that really hit me was when I moved back and I had so much shame. I was
Mm-hmm.
just in this shame spiral of I'd been with this district forever. I move away. Everyone knows I'm moving away to get married. There's goodbye parties. There's all kinds of things. A year passes. Okay, now it's back to school in service, and I'm walking into that door, and everyone's like, "What are you doing here?" And I was like, "Oh, just devastating."
Oh.
And I'm like, "Yeah," but my friend who had, um, both of my friends who had saved me in Oklahoma worked for the same district, and so they ran interference greatly. Like they'd kind of go ahead and be like, "Yep, she's back and she's happy, healthy, and safe," and just kind of wave and let her be. And like,
Well, that's good. Lisa was your advocate.
yes,
Good.
and so um got through that. But so somebody that I look up to so much, and that I just am like, oh my gosh, she has all of everything together. Like she just is wonderful, and I want to be her when I grow up.
Mhm.
Um, Took me out to lunch one day and shared something that had happened to her when she was
Mhm.
much younger, and it didn't lead to marriage or anything, but her sharing that tiny blip of her story,
Mhm.
and then me being able to see and be like, well, I would never think or say the things that I'm thinking or saying about myself about you.
Mhm.
Like, what in the world? Like, so it helped me gain some perspective. Like, this doesn't have to define me. This isn't the end of my story.
Exactly.
And it was so helpful when she shared her story that I was like, okay, what if I share my story and somebody happens to hear it or read it, and they're somewhere in the midst of this journey, and it helps them see this doesn't define me. This isn't the end of my story, and I'm going to be okay. And I can do whatever the heck I want with my life from here on out. I can create a life that I love.
You can create a life that you love. And it took someone else, just like you're now on this show, sharing your story for others to hear. Someone shared their story to help brighten your light.
Yeah.
And that's how the book came to be. That's how it started as a thought to create a life you love.
Mhm. And I was out on a walk, and I've been thinking, at that time I actually was going to start a YouTube channel, and I
Mm-hmm.
did start it and decided I didn't really like it.
Mm-hmm.
But then I remembered I always liked writing, and so it morphed and evolved into a book. Um, but I was trying to think of a name for my YouTube channel,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm out on a walk, and it just like hit me. Like the words just came from somewhere. It was like, create a life you love. And I was like,
That's it.
yes, that's it.
That's it.
And just the other day, I was downstairs making my lunch, cutting up my little cucumbers for my salad, and words struck me of "You are not stuck." So I don't know when, but my second book is going to be titled
You
"You
are
Are
not
Not Stuck."
stuck. Okay, look, it's in the making. You
Yep.
are not stuck. Oh. And why did that come to your head? It's just something you were doing, God knows what.
Chopping up cucumbers.
You are not stuck.
You are not stuck.
Okay.
And I was on a podcast not that long ago, and at the very end, her question was one takeaway message. What do you want to give to the audience? And I kind of like froze, and I was like, I don't know. And those words just came like so powerfully.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, somebody needed to hear that. Somebody's going to listen to that podcast, and that's going to be the exact words that they needed, because those were not my words.
Yeah,
Those came from whatever you want to believe. like
exactly.
um but and then I told that story, like this really cool thing happened,
Mm-hmm.
and then I moved on, and I did not come back to it. I did not think about it. I did not. And then I'm just chopping up cucumbers, and it just is like, nope, I'm bringing this back. Like, you're going to do something with this.
You're not
And I was
stuck.
like, oh,
Okay.
okay.
All right, universe, I'm listening to you. I'm totally
Yeah.
listening to you. So now your life has totally changed drastically within the last few years. What are three positives that you have taken from your experience? And are there any new boundaries that you set now
Um, three three things I've taken away, is that you are not stuck.
You are not stuck.
um, you are not stuck. So wherever you are, no matter what, good or bad, wherever you are in life, you're not stuck there.
Hmm.
You can keep trucking along. You get to constantly evaluate, is this where I want to be and where do I want to be next? Like I feel like I go through a transformation cycle every 90 days. I'm constantly leveling up, and doing some new way to push myself. And not that everybody needs to be at that level or do it every 90 days, but we all have that opportunity to constantly be evolving ourselves.
Hmm.
Um, and so that's definitely a big one, is that you are not stuck. Another one would be to allow yourself grace. Um, I I'm a recovered perfectionist.
Mm.
And now I'm just like, yeah, ain't nobody got time for that.
Hmm.
And that's what I do my podcast live on Facebook, because I will edit and edit and edit till the cows come home. And I don't have time for it. And my message won't get out there. The amazing guests I bring on won't, I will keep their message on my little hard drive till the cows come home if it's up to me editing it to get it perfect.
Mm.
But if we just do it live and be like, yep, it was an authentic, real conversation. Next. um,
You're brave than me.
find oh, there's been lots of little fun tech issues.
The text
And
issues
you
never
learn to laugh.
stop. I know.
No, and you just laugh. And you allow yourself grace. So allowing yourself grace is huge, and
Hmm.
allowing others grace,
Hmm.
obviously. But for some reason, at least for me, it's easier to allow others grace than myself. So that was really
Normally it
the
is.
big takeaway.
Self-observation, I feel, is hard.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
It is.
Yeah. And what's your third? You are not
My
stuck. Allow
mhm.
yourself grace.
And just I am fascinated with um how our brains work.
Mm.
And everything I did, my 10 habits that transform me, didn't pick them for any reason other than they seemed easy. Like they were
Hmm.
like, start a gratitude journal, try out affirmations. And I was able to do them, and lots of people were talking about them.
Hmm.
Like all the gurus and all the books and all the podcasts all kind of had the same basic thing. So I finally started doing them. But what I found out later, after I'd already written my book, after I'd already had my transformation, I found my friend and mentor, Dr. Shannon Irvin, who has her PhD in neuroscience and neuropsychology, and she has created the neurocoaching model, where her coaching model takes people through a brain-based methodology that gets them a transformation. And the
Mm.
things I was doing are part of that model.
I see.
um, so she had, when I found her, I was like, oh, I knew it worked, but now I know why it worked. Now I can look at brain scans of why this works and how this is truly a lasting transformation.
Mm.
How I have rewired my neural networks and how I can help others do the same. And so she's who I've worked with now for a few years, and got my coaching certification through her. I did lots of research when people started trying to hire me as a coach. And I
Hmm.
was like, I'm a teacher. I'm not a coach. I don't know what
Hmm.
you're talking about. Um, and when I found her, it just all clicked. I was like, that's, she's my girl.
That's your
Like,
girl. That's where you get the
yeah.
title neuro coach from.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Okay. And so fascination of the brain and how it works, which comes
Mm-hmm.
into your neuro coaching. What is one big boundary that are you dating now, Chantel?
Um, yes, kind of,
But
but
there's no
not.
one that is exclusive.
We are exclusive.
Okay.
We just don't see each other that often or do it like, because my boundary is that I don't want to lose myself in anyone
Okay.
again.
Got it.
So I'm like, I have a job I love. I
Mm-hmm.
have this side business I love. I have hobbies I love. I have friends I love.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I enjoy spending time with you. So yeah, we can maybe like hang out once a week and yeah.
You so
Like,
silly. Hang out once a week. Now, with that very nonchalant response, my dear, this is not an open relationship, right? Or,
no.
okay, but he, or I should say she, let me not discriminate. Is it a he?
It is a he.
Okay,
Yes.
doesn't discriminate over that and is comfortable with the boundary that you have set.
Yes.
Good.
I've had the conversation a few times of saying, "You're great and you deserve more and you deserve somebody who wants to be your life partner and meet your kids." And because it's October and
Mm-hmm.
we've been together since January, so it's been like 10 months.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to have a 6-month rule that I won't meet your kids
Okay.
until we've been dating 6 months. And then I'll evaluate, do I need to meet your kids or not? And that's a boundary I put in place after meeting and falling in love with my stepson so early. And then that was a key piece of why I didn't want to leave either,
Got it.
because I didn't want to lose him. Um, and so that's a boundary I put is the 6-month rule. And so he was so excited for the 6 months to come up. And now, oh, now we can hang out more often because now you can see my kids. And now when it doesn't have to be like a kid night or a Chantel night. It could all. And I was like, oh, buddy, no, 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 no.
Okay.
And I'm like, because when you're with your kids, I'm not sitting around twiddling my thumbs wishing I was hanging out with you.
Yeah.
Like, I'm doing my podcast. I'm working on this. I'm coaching people. So I'm like, I'm not willing to give up all that time to go watch your kids' karate game or whatever. Like, I'm sure they're great, wonderful, amazing kids, but I'm like, meh. Also in January, right around the time we started dating, I decided I'm 37. It hasn't happened. I don't think it's supposed to happen, and I'm okay with that.
Okay.
So I still do not have kids, and now I have fully embraced that I am kid free, and there are other things I can do with my life um, when I don't have kids.
Have you
That
just
Mhm.
settled with the thought that you think it's not going to happen? Or are you still leaving that door open? Because let's say you do meet somebody, let's say it is him, and he does wait around to when you are comfortable to take the next step into the relationship, and that person does want to have more children. Would you be okay being pregnant at 39 or 40?
Ugh. Um, I mean, I looked into like fostering to adopt and adopt. Like, I was like, maybe the relationship thing doesn't need to be there. Maybe I can just have kids. Like, if
Okay.
I want
You
kids,
can. You're right.
I've got a good career. Like, I make decent money. There's no reason why I can't have
Got
kids.
it.
So I looked at that option, and I was like, ugh, I have a pretty awesome life.
Ah, I
Like,
see. You're
um,
happy the way you
so
can kind of pick up and go and the way things are
mhm,
flowing right now. You've gotten comfortable with it.
yes.
Got it.
So at one point, I felt like I was missing out.
Mm-hmm.
And now I feel like if my life were to change again in such a dramatic way that now there are kids, that I'd almost be resentful
I
and be
see what
like,
you mean. I
now
understand.
I'm missing out. Like, I could just pick up and go to Aruba this weekend, but no, it's so and so's birthday. Like,
I got to find a babysitter. I can't just leave this
yeah.
kid unattended. Well, that's good. I mean, within the last 7 years, a lot has changed. Your attitude has changed. Things have changed for the better. I love the boundaries that you have set in place. Number one, you are not stuck, and that's as simple as it gets. You're not stuck. Don't allow yourself to. It's kind of like getting caught in quicksand,
Mm,
and you just have to fight to get out. We all have a story. We all have a story. Everyone's story is different. Everyone's path is different, but you are not stuck, and you need to figure out a way to get out of that quicksand. Next one is allow yourself grace. We, I think, beat ourselves up. And when I say we, women especially, we emotionally beat ourselves up. Um, oh, I'm too fat. I'm too this. I think every woman on the face of this earth, I'm going to say 99%, because I am part of that 1%. I've never been on the diet. I don't plan on dieting. We're always dieting. I cannot not talk to one woman that's not on some type of diet. Instead of her just saying, you know what, I just need to watch what I eat, my portion intake, but you could give me that steak. Just don't give me enough steak for 2, 3 people, but I can eat a steak. No, we're always dieting. We're always doing this. No carbs today, no cheese, no this, no that. We need to allow ourselves grace. And we need to also realize that I say this many times, every relationship, life is a full experience. We as human beings, we are constantly evolving, constantly changing. Every relationship you get in is a new experience. We're not taught relationships in school. We don't know what the hell we're doing when we start this shit. And from that first relationship that you start, you already know it's nothing healthy. You don't know what you're doing. You don't have the appropriate tools to cultivate a healthy relationship. You're just going with the flow. Hopefully knowing you know yourself enough to have a healthy relationship, because a lot of times you don't know yourself. And that's the problem. I wasn't confident in my decision making at times. I was scared to stand my ground, voice my opinion, and speak myself because I didn't want to be labeled as, you're a nagging woman.
Mhm.
What? Excuse me? Because I'm voicing myself, you have nothing else to say but to call me a nagging woman? Interesting. And I accepted it for a very long time, but it's because we didn't know. We spoke to each other like shit. So I understand what you mean by giving yourself grace. Fascinated by how the brain works. That's an interesting third option that you gave, or third positivity that you gave. I've never gotten that one before, but it's the truth. The brain is wired very interestingly. It's always there protecting us. I feel like, especially when I was in my lowest point in life, my brain was always operating at its best because it was always telling me, okay, Shirley, red alert, red alert. Okay, we need to gear up, girl, gear up. These red flags are coming at us again. We need to gear up. So when I was at my lowest point, my brain was operating at its highest point, and I had to figure out how to level that. And every now and then, things will bounce off, but I'm trying my best to keep a level playing field. But you're right. How the brain works is very fascinating. And I love the boundary that you have set about, from what you were telling me before, you were like this person's little puppy. And I'm sorry to use that term, but you weren't even confident in your decision makings. And now you're like, look, buddy, this is what it's going to be. This is what I'm comfortable with. Take it or leave it. You could go be with somebody else, and you're just living your life. And that's it. And I want you to continue that path, because that's good. Most of us are not confident in our decisions. We're always second guessing ourselves or misjudging. So this is great. I am excited of where you are right now, because I love to see when a person goes from trauma to triumphant situation, when you get out of that gutter and that rut that you were in and you change your life completely, Chantal, which you have absolutely changed your life. And I guess we'll be waiting for the book of You Are Not Stuck, which is the second book you'll be working on. But guys, make sure you definitely go to the website, get all her information, read her book of Create a Life You Love, because this woman has drastically changed her situation and has taken ownership and has let go of all the shame and not let society feed so much into her. So I want to thank you for being a guest, Chantal. Appreciate having you. And listeners, as always, thank you for listening. And remember to love yourself, voice yourself, and be yourself. To the next podcast. Have a great one.
Thanks for tuning in to Fanpale Podcast. If you want to continue the conversation or share your takeaways, I want to hear from you. Head on over to the website or join our Facebook community and comment your favorite part of the show or share your thoughts. I want to hear what you have to say. Don't forget to rate and subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. Chat with you next week.